5 days later, and still no verdict in the case of 29-year-old Christopher Husbands, the man accused of opening fire in a crowded Eaton Centre nearly 7 years ago. A criminal lawyer we spoke to says that the jury may be confused as to whether Husbands should be held not criminally responsible or convicted of second-degree murder. On June 22nd, back in 2012, absolute terror in downtown Toronto. Terrified shoppers fleeing from a packed Eaton Centre mall after a gunman opens fire on a group of men in the food court. He kills 2 of them and injures several others, including a 13-year-old boy who survived a gunshot wound to the head.
So what's your last name, please? Husbands.
Christopher Husbands on trial for the second time on the same case. He had been tried and found guilty of 2 counts of second-degree murder back in 2014, but the Ontario Court of Appeals overturned that decision due to an error by the now-retired judge at the time of jury selection. The jury going into its 6th day of deliberations. What do you think it is that the jury is struggling with in this case?
I think there's probably at least a few people that have a significant amount of sympathy for Mr. Husbands. Apparently there were some photos, graphic evidence of how he was tortured by these individuals.
During the trial, Husbands testified months before the shooting he was the victim of a brutal beating and stabbing at the hands of some of the men he opened fire on that day.
At least a few of them are really thinking about whether or not he was not criminally responsible, because when you really think about it, it's a brazen, illogical act in the middle of the day at Eaton Centre in the food court to start shooting someone.
Husbands has admitted he was the gunman, but has pleaded not guilty on all charges, including 2 counts of second-degree murder. Multiple psychiatric experts testified that Husbands did have PTSD, but are split on whether or not he was in a dissociative state during the shooting. 14 bullets were fired. Is it possible for him to be found not criminally responsible for some of those shots?
It's an all or nothing. So in other words, although the Crown has indicated in the closing to the jury, and the video seems to show that when he did cock the gun, so to speak, he was aiming. So the Crown's argument is that it would take more than just an automatism state for him to load the gun and or shoot it.
We asked the criminal lawyer whether the jury could be at a deadlock, and she says she doesn't think that's the case. She thinks that the judge will try to force them to try and deliberate as the trial enters its 6th day tomorrow.